Time now for business, and we say hello to Brian Quinn.
Hey, Francois.
It's a story we might be revisiting in the world this week. Elon Musk once again moving markets, this time when it comes to cryptocurrencies.
Indeed, he's got that habit this past week. It seems this time it's Dogecoin once again. You will recall that earlier this week, the Tesla chief sent Bitcoin's value tumbling when he called its environmental footprint insane and said that Tesla would no longer be accepting it as payment. Well, Musk's latest tweet says that he's working with Dogecoin's developers to improve its efficiency. Dogecoin, of course, is the once jokey meme cryptocurrency that has turned quite serious after gaining some 12,000% over the past year. It's currently up around 32%, trading around 55 cents each. Well, Doge had previously reached a high of around 67 cents before taking a big hit when Musk called it a hustle during an appearance on Saturday Night Live. Dogecoin's recent rebound also being helped by major crypto exchange Coinbase, which says it will start offering trading support in the coming weeks. Musk's tweets, though, have led to growing concern over the ethics and legality over his pretty apparent power over crypto markets. Plenty of long-term crypto backers are less than thrilled. Take a listen.
Behind all of this, there is a community of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, who actually is focused on building the future of finance and making sure that that will be acting in your best interest instead of just showing up on SNL or being able to have a lot of Twitter followers or whatever else.
Well, turning to the more traditional markets now. Wall Street rebounding for the second day in a row after a big sell-off on Wednesday. A lackluster retail sales report failing to hold back major indexes as the travel sector in particular sees a big bounce from the latest loosening of mask-wearing guidelines in the U.S. Disney shares one major exception. They're down nearly 3% after missing targets on revenue and new streaming subscribers. European indexes closing strong as well after a rough week amid global fears that rising inflation could lead to a tightening on loose monetary policy. Jobless claims on the continent falling to a 14-month low as London finished up 1.1%. CAC 40 here in Paris and the Frankfurt DAX each up around 1.5% at the close. Well, to Madrid next, where Friday saw protesters gather outside the headquarters of CaixaBank. Demonstrators demanding an end to evictions and more help for struggling families. Despite the extension of a legal moratorium on evictions during the pandemic, foreclosure requests actually rose by more than 17% in 2020. CaixaBank is now Spain's biggest lender after buying a rival Bankia last year. Activists are calling on the company to return bailout money that was given to Bankia in 2012 so that it can be put towards rent relief.
I'm lucky to have a house and a job, but I'm angry because the banking system in Spain is the most unjust in the world. Apart from the fact that housing is impossible to maintain on one salary, when people get evicted, I don't understand why the banks keep the house and people have to pay the debt for life.
Well, next, while the pandemic has been a huge blight on many commercial sectors, there are some that have not only escaped unscathed, but have actually managed to toast their success. There's e-commerce, of course, and also, perhaps unsurprisingly, alcohol retailers. Here in France, with bars closed, neighborhood wine merchants have seen their cups runneth over, as Luc Schrager reports.
Franck Jaboulé has been a wine merchant for 30 years. He doesn't yet know if 2021 will be a good vintage just yet, but one thing he's sure of. With 10 to 15% above normal levels, it's been a bumper year for sales so far.
C'est assez inédit pour cette période, parce qu'habituellement, les mois de février et mars sont assez calmes. Et là, on travaille très bien actuellement.
With a curfew in effect and bars and restaurants closed, thirsty clients are turning elsewhere, and wine merchants are ready to pick up the extra custom.
J'ai 2-3 souvenirs dans l'année de m'être fait plaisir avec des bouteilles en se disant bon bah voilà, on va pas au restaurant, on va pas on va se faire plaisir avec une très belle bouteille, peut-être qu'on n'avait pas l'habitude de faire avant.
More than that, new customers are also discovering the wealth of information and advice that specialists in the industry have to offer.
On ne boit pas forcément plus, mais on choisira des bonnes bouteilles.
Before the pandemic, The commercial balance with wine merchants between restaurants and private individuals was 60 to 40. That ratio's been turned on its head and helped limit losses.
On a 50% de l'activité grossiste-restaurant qui est en baisse au minimum. Et à côté de ça, effectivement, la partie caviste, elle, pour les particuliers, a plutôt bien fonctionné.
Weekend sales in particular are up, with merchants noticing new younger clients, ones they want to try and keep coming back.
Next, Hyundai says it's planning to invest $7.4 billion in the U.S. over the coming 4 years. The South Korean automaker says the money will go towards producing electric vehicles, upgrading facilities, and boosting smart mobility solutions. That move comes as the Biden administration is pushing hard for electrification in the U.S. car market, calling for $174 billion in federal spending to encourage production and increase charging stations. Analysts say Hyundai's investment is key to taking advantage of that push, but that questions remain over the details.
눈여겨볼 점은 현대기아가 미국에서 생산한 전기차 배터리를 어떻게 공급받는지가 될 것입니다. 현재 미국 정부의 정책 기준은 전기차 생산뿐만이 아니고 전기차에 들어가는 부품의 현지 조달을 강조를 하고 있습니다.
Well, some more of the day's top business headlines we're following for you at this hour. French water and waste management giants Veolia and Suez have agreed to a long-contested mega-merger. Suez finally accepting the takeover at €20.50 per share. That's up from Veolia's original offer of €18 each. The new company says it plans to be a global leader in helping firms and cities reduce their environmental impact. Britain's Serious Fraud Office has launched an investigation into the business empire of Liberty Steel owner Sanjeev Gupta. The probe is targeting fraudulent trading and money laundering, including links to Greensill Capital. That's the supply chain finance firm that collapsed earlier this year. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority is already investigating Greensill's collapse as, quote, potentially criminal in nature. And Airbnb says it's expecting the, quote, travel rebound of the century as countries reopen for tourism. Booking value on the home-sharing site has jumped 52% as clients spring for bigger and more isolated properties. The company is still struggling, though. First quarter results showed a net loss of $1.8 billion. Finally, for business, a push for greater gender equality in French boardrooms. France's National Assembly this week approved a new draft law that requires companies with more than 1,000 employees to have women as 30% of its senior management by 2027 and 40% by 2030. Left-wing parties were somewhat critical of the bill for not going far enough while still lending it their support. The country's Minister for Gender Equality, Elizabeth Moreno, called quotas necessary to counter inequalities that are deeply ingrained in French mentalities, saying that in many respects, society here remains patriarchal, sexist, and discriminatory. The new law heads to the Senate next for final approval. I think there are probably plenty of people who work in France who would not disagree with the minister's assessment there, Francois.
Indeed. Many thanks for that. Brian